Every woman needs to take that universal path to find self-worth, a voice, and a cherished life. That path is the heroine's journey, the roadmap to an amazing adventure that women travel to discover their true selves. The heroine's journey is not about getting on your superpowers and going out to fight the lions, tigers, and bears of the outside world with your might. That would be the hero's journey. This woman's journey is the internal journey that a woman takes to grow her courage and strength and travel to her best life.
I'm so excited. My book is now live on Amazon. It's been a 10-year project for me so that I can bring this information to you because it's been so valuable to me. If you'll go to Amazon, look for The Heroine's Journey, Joan Perry, you'll find the book. $4.99 for you for just a limited time. Go get it now.
Welcome everyone back to the Heroine's Journey. Joan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. And I'm so excited because the book's finished.
Congratulations.
It's the Heroine's Journey book. I've been working on it now for about 5, maybe 10 years as I was thinking about doing all of this. It's been a labor of love. And, it's been so important in my own life. It really transformed my life. I think about it every day and the things that are in the book that just guide our way. It picked me up from a time when my life was not good and just moved me on down the road. So I'm so excited to present this material. It'll be out in the middle of July. We'll have a pre-order period, and it's exciting.
Congratulations. And what a perfect summer to release the Heroine's Journey to the world as well. So everything is just in perfect timing.
That's true. It usually is, even though sometimes we don't think so.
Absolutely.
Is.
Which is the topic I wanted to ask you a little bit about today. As children, we really focus on joy and adventure. We don't have the weight of the world on our shoulders. However, as we get a little older and a little bit more mature, there's a lot of things that cross our paths. And what we try to do through life is straighten out that curve. So as we're driving, through the mountains and the road is narrow and a curve, you try to drive and straighten out the curve so that it's a lot easier to navigate and safer as you see around the corners. So we'll look at life and we try to balance the ups and downs as we straighten down the curve. But many people will tell us that really life has to do about our choice. So as we look at the jobs we have or the spouses we have, the friends we have, the experiences we pull into our lives and the activities we focus on, sometimes we feel like, wait a minute, I've done everything I can. Where was my choice in this event? So we see you and I, as we come down to it, a lot of the actual events have less to do about the event and more to do about the emotion or the application of our emotion into the event. And I know that you had shared with me an absolutely incredible story that you likened to maybe something that Shakespeare might have come up with. And I was wondering if you want to share that with the Heroine's Journey community today.
Yes, just what you were saying, Helen Keller famously said that a bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn.
Oh, how valid that is.
Yes. So I think that's part of what you're saying is that in order to have a great life, we have to sometimes look at it through different lenses. And we teach in the Heroine's Journey about rewriting your story, writing it from the perspective of the heroine and not the victim, because how you interpret your emotion can, things that I look back on my life and say, oh my gosh, that was horrible. I now look back on it and think, what a gift that was. And the reason is that I couldn't see the bigger picture back then. But now I get to have some more perspective on it. And it actually played an important role in my life to change it in a way that got me to where I am here today. So that's all really important in the heroine's journey.
And that's the beauty of life. Often we take steps, even when we're absolutely comfortable where we're at, there's no way we would have taken that step or opened that door or gone on that adventure.
Yes.
But it life takes us down paths, whether or not we're ready to go, and sometimes screaming and kicking, saying we're not ready.
That's right. That's right. So, yes, I'd like to tell a bit of a story today of something that happened to me a number of years ago. And I'm going to tell this story because it has so much impact on rewriting your story and how you're thinking about things, as we're talking about. So let me start by saying that my partner invited me to go on a sailing trip. It was supposed to have been a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to go sailing from one island to another. Although you can tell from my start of my story, it wasn't so wonderful.
But let's pause there a minute. So, with somebody that you really care about, you're in an area that's absolutely magnificent for more than a few days. It's a couple-week adventure, and it's just in an area that most people would look to as paradise. So, really, a vacation of a lifetime.
Yes, that's right. Should have been so lovely to go sailing from one island to the next and, just kick back and relax and enjoy and, all those things that we all desire to get through life smoothly.
Yes.
And that's where it started. You can tell from the beginning of my story that it didn't go that way.
Okay, what shifted? What was a turning point, or at what point did you realize, wait a minute, the road turned?
Well, there were 7 people who were supposed to board this sailboat, and I didn't know 5 of them. I only knew myself, obviously, and one other. So I didn't really know what I was getting into, which is a good lesson on the front end, to kind of think about what you're getting into. And what I didn't know was that the people on the boat had a hidden agenda. And their hidden agenda was that they didn't want my partner at the time to bring me because it was a new relationship. They wanted him to bring someone else. And because of that, from the very start, there was an antagonism against me that I couldn't even understand because I didn't know this. But sometimes people have agendas and we think, oh, I'm just here, big smile, happy to be here, easy to work with. And it doesn't happen that way because there's something else going on.
So, Joan, if I can ask you there's 2 different questions that come up in my mind. One is, you and I both have a personality that if there's something odd going on, or in this case, an agenda, you and I still put a smile on our faces and think we're going to fix this anyways. It's just not that bad. But I think also the water around us will get warmer and warmer and warmer to a point of boiling before we really realize it. This is happening. This ship has literally set sail and we are stuck. At what point did you realize and become honest with yourself that there were events outside your control that were literally about attacking you?
So right from the beginning, before we ever got on the boat, let's just say there was an older couple. Okay, let's call them Ken and Renee.
Okay.
And before we got on the boat, there was a red flag because I'd given my passport, because I was out of the country, to the hotel manager and I didn't get it back. I didn't know where it had gone, but I said that I didn't get it back. And this older man in the middle of the hotel, one of the participants on the boat, started screaming at me. They gave it back to you. You just don't know. What'd you do with it? I'm like, this is my problem. This is not your problem. But the point of the story at this point is that there was a red flag. But because I want to be nice, I grew up in the Midwest, I stood my ground as a heroine would, but I didn't really take into consideration it being anything that was really going to affect me, as we went on. But it was a red flag. And how many times do we all see red flags and we're like, oh, I'm not going to pay attention to that. I want everything to turn out perfectly and joyfully. So I'm going to ignore that.
Yeah, time and time again. Yep.
Yep. Yep. Yep. So we all got on the ship. The ship, I call it. It was a 44-foot catamaran, which is really important to note because now there were 7 of us on this boat, some hostility that I wasn't aware of, and we set sail for 2 weeks. And we were sailing from island to island, so you couldn't get off. And how many times in our lives do we feel like we're trapped?
Yeah.
You know, and what's around us, we have to deal with, and we don't even understand some of it. We just are there to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. So what happened the first evening then? You've set sail, you're in this absolutely beautiful part of the world, you're meeting new people, and yet it's a little bit interesting. What was the first evening like?
So here's what I noticed. I noticed that nobody made eye contact with me, asked me a question, smiled. I was getting isolated from the very beginning. Actually, that first evening, I made dinner for everyone, and I'm a good cook. So, you know,
I can attest to that.
generally people like it when I cook.
Absolutely. And Joan, I'm gonna talk a little bit here too. When Joan cooks, it is not something just put on a table. It is a masterpiece of just artwork of the way that the food has been lovingly prepared, that's absolutely selected out of the best of the best, and then displayed in a way that everything just looks so beautiful and yummy, and in bowls and plates and cutlery that is just magnificent. So when Joan says she's made dinner, it is a magnificent event to be invited to.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you know, I was trying to do that very same thing with this group of people because I wanted to treat them in some way. You know, I was bringing my generosity and my kindness and, you know, and I hope for people to all have a good time. But what I learned later is that even while I was cooking dinner, they were talking about me and slandering me. Like, so amazing. And I didn't know about this hidden agenda. And I didn't know about the talk that was going on about me or their determination. So it befuddled me, you know, but I started to feel over the next 6 days so uncomfortable because as I look back on it now, I was getting a constant stream of hate.
Wow.
Now, it's really confusing and befuddling to me why anyone would do this, but that was the truth. The truth was to the point that by the 6th day, I was just in tears because here I am confined on this 44-foot boat with people who are clearly not including me and so passive aggressive that I don't even understand what's happening. I don't understand why they don't like me. I have done my best to be generous. And now, I mean, I have to make sure that if they're here on the boat, I go there because I could just feel the uncomfortableness of being there.
How did, as you were going through the realization of what was going on, how did your partner handle this?
That was a difficult part too, because I was saying, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. And he was like, oh no, just be yourself, you know, just come up and be part of the party. I didn't even go to dinner because I was so uncomfortable sitting across from people who weren't including me, who clearly were mocking me, and who didn't want me to be there. So he had responsibilities for the boat, which were big responsibilities because it was an expensive boat that we were taking from place to place. But when he asked me that question, what do you want me to do? And he had said, please be kind to Joan. but they ignored it. They had an agenda that they were not going to give up, and they were playing a game that they were not going to give up. And it was, I thought at the time it was 5 against 1. It turned out later that it was probably 4 against 1, or maybe even 3 against 1. But at the time, when it feels so off, you can feel like everybody's against you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Everybody. So I was putting a lot of pressure on my partner, and he finally started to see it. So that was good. But initially, he didn't want to believe what I had to say. So how many times have we been in situations where you're saying the truth, but the people around you don't want to believe it?
And I think and I think, Joan, it goes back to even when it's difficult for us to really come to terms that this is happening, somebody who's sitting not in our shoes or sitting next to us, no matter how much they love us, if they're not feeling the same directed agenda or hatred or emotions, it's very difficult for them to really see what's happening. And even with their eyes, if they see passing eyes rolling or unkind words, there can be a response more of, we'll just brush it off.
That's what I got.
It's only a couple weeks. We're just, but without really understanding how harmful this is. And I think we go back to, we're not just humans, we're souls, and we can feel the negativity before it even happens. We know that this is happening, and yet from childhood we are often taught to lie to ourselves that no, this isn't that bad, or this isn't happening. So as we grow up, a mature woman like yourself knows from the instant this is real, and still we try to do everything we can to make it better.
Hey, exciting. Look at the screen. The book, The Heroine's Journey, The Art of Becoming the Heroine of Your Own Life, is now up. You can download it as an ebook. I got something really special for you too. The ebook is at 99 cents for the next 2 weeks. It's a special offer to our inner circle. Those of you who are listening to the great journey that we're talking about on our podcast every week, the book takes you into the understanding of the heroine's journey and your journey. And once you've read the book, we'd love for you to come back and tell us about how the heroine's journey is working out for you. Please write us a review. In the meantime, The Heroine's Journey on Amazon for 99 cents for you for just a limited time. Go get it now. When I look back on it now, what I got for those first 6 days that we're talking about was the constant stream of hate. Yeah. These were his long-term friends. So they were loving on him on the other side. So being in a situation which was so passive aggressive that he was not having the same experience that I was having. And yet I was asking him to understand what my experience was. Wow. So by the 6th day, I just burst out in tears. I was like, I cannot deal with that. Does that island over there have an airport? Can I get on an airplane and go? Well, as it turned out, that was a difficult proposition because we were checking in and out of different countries, and you had to account for the people on the boat. So literally, that was more pressure for my containment on the boat. I couldn't get off. It was going to be a big deal if I'd gotten off the boat. Now I'm sitting in a lot of pain. Well, the older couple had, their daughter was also on the trip, and their son-in-law. And the son-in-law came up and gave me a big hug, and he said, Joan, I'm so sorry for all this. I see what's happening. They're talking about you. They're not being kind. This is not okay. And I just feel so badly. What was great at that point is he put it on the table.
And you had validation too.
I had validation. So how many times in life do we need validation for what we're actually going through? And sometimes it's just very hard to get it. Yeah. Because people's experiences are different than ours are. That was wonderful because it put it on the table and it became real. However, it didn't solve my problem. Now I'm still on this 44-foot boat with these 5 people who are hating on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we've all been in that situation where you just feel like you're in a trash compactor. And you're just like, I want to get out of here. I'm in this box. I want to get out. But here's the thing. The directions are on the outside of the box.
We can laugh, but it's not that funny. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So the son-in-law said, let's just go to the island and have dinner tonight, and and we'll get some relief from this stress. So the daughter of the older couple and the son-in-law and my partner and I went off to a lovely dinner. Actually, it was a restaurant I wanted to go to. It was an old sugar plantation, so that was, that did enliven my spirit, and
Yep.
I got out of the box for a bit. But the continuation of the story is that we had dinner and then we got in the dinghy to go back to the boat. And my partner's trying to get out of the dinghy. One side of the dinghy has gotten damaged, and so the dinghy is actually trying to sink.
Oh no! And here we go.
As he's sitting in the dinghy, unable to help anybody because he's the last one out of the dinghy, the son-in-law turns into like the Hulk. On this 44-foot boat, he turns into this raving, angry guy that we were all concerned that somebody was going to be dead.
Wow. And I can just imagine that so often people in a married relationship experience something similar, but they're trapped. They can't get out. Was this a moment of him breaking out of that too?
Well, and we were on, this boat of 44 feet. And he was just outraged at his in-laws because he said they treated him the same way.
Interesting.
And he said, you're not being kind to Joan. This is not okay. She was invited to come on this trip. She, this is her partner. You need to recognize this. And it erupted in this shoving, pushing match on this boat.
Wow.
Like crazy. And as you're saying, that's the kind of thing that can happen in a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Where all of a sudden it just gets out of control.
Yeah.
And it can become dangerous. It was dangerous on that boat.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point, somebody could have fallen in the water or any number of other things.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow that subsided, and eventually everyone went to bed. Here's another big piece that I didn't know that was going on at the time, but it's very significant, and it was also very significant in my marriage, a red flag that I missed. Mm-hmm. And that's that these people were drinking very heavily, like a 92 proof rum, and going through bottles of it. Because I hadn't been going to dinner, I hadn't really seen that part of it because that was going on after dinner. Mm-hmm. And I was downstairs busily editing the book. So I didn't see that. But that is, of course, another red flag of the behavior that I was seeing.
And the cognitive impairment around not acting rationally, or as we opened with, choosing emotions on their side.
Exactly. And I couldn't control it. I was outnumbered. They had an agenda. They promoted the game that they were playing, and it was causing me misery. Mm-hmm. So even after it was on the table and people were asked to change their behavior, they didn't. They continued to exclude me, to say things about me, and they made up stories that weren't even, true about me, mm-hmm. because for some reason they wanted to make me vile. Mm-hmm. And haven't we all been in those situations where somebody just wants to make you bad?
Sadly, yes. They'll just keep stirring up the drama in their own life, and then it flows out to other individuals. And then people like you and I are just blindsided. Where did this come from? And yet that seems to be a pattern in their life. However, without knowing them or walking a life with them, we don't realize that this is how they live their life. We realize that, wait, this attack is on me.
Mm-hmm. You know, even my partner would say, well, they just don't like you, and it's okay for people not to like one another. Yeah, but it's not okay for people to mistreat one another.
Yeah.
And the other thing I said to him is, you know, when I can choose the people in my life, of course they like me, and of course we get along great, and of course I can be generous and kind, and they reciprocate with that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't choose these people. This was a contrived situation that I was put into, and then I had to deal with it.
Yeah.
And isn't that happens too in life? And then you're just like, what do I do here? So it continued on, and by the 10th day, I couldn't, like, I was going to swim to shore. And, you know, my partner came downstairs and I had just burst into tears. And now he fully understands what's going on, but he feels helpless of how to save me. Don't we all want to be saved at times?
Yes.
You know, and then we realize that we can't be saved, that we can only save ourselves. So much as I know he cares about me, he couldn't make these people change their behavior either. He was like, you know, but he started to recognize how bad it was. And I just, you know, he said to me, please don't leave the boat. And I realized that I was just going to have to endure 3 or 4 more days of misery.
Wow.
And sometimes that's the way it happens. You know, you want to be out, but you have to endure some time before you actually get out. And I think at that point, what I really realized was that from under this pressure, my heroine had to emerge, because it called me to really have to believe in my own self-worth. I could not let these people and what they were saying and all the criticism that they had land on me in any way that it was going to affect who I think I am.
Now, Joan, this is a big awareness, though. If we wake up in the morning and we have notes on our mirror or reminders here of how beautiful we are, how lovely life is, but when you're in the middle of this chaos, it's very challenging to rise above and have this awareness, and then to hold on to it.
And that's what a heroine does. You know, I was being ignored, I was being abused, I was terribly frustrated. I had my own emotion to deal with. It was a stream of hate that was coming my way. I couldn't get out. There were all these things going on, but at the same time, I had to dig deep, because if I lost believing in my own self-worth and who I am and the goodness that I know I come to the table with, then I would lose the battle. I had to be a heroine and hold my head high. So we finally pulled back to the dock at the end of 2 weeks. We got off, the 5 people got off the boat and went to have some dinner, and they drank heavily before dinner. So we know that's part of the scenario, and people are irrational when they do that. And my partner and I got up and we walked back into the restaurant holding hands. So that was a signal to them that their ploy had not worked, that it was not working. And we sat down and we had some pizza that night. And then we're going to spend one more night on the boat. So we get back on the boat for that night and we go downstairs. And the daughter-in-law, now remember, she went to have dinner with us. And so the mother, who I think we have to agree was very controlling, undoubtedly was very upset with her daughter that she jumped ship and she went off to have dinner with us. So the daughter comes screaming downstairs in a tantrum, asking for my, not screaming for my partner, and not, and just raging, knocking on the door. So, you know, we've all been in those situations where like there's so much pent up anger that
Yes.
you're like,
Mhm.
okay, what do I do now? He opened the door and she started shaking her finger at me, screaming that I had disrupted her marriage and her husband was going to leave her. And she called me a string of really bad names I've never been called before because I'm a lovely woman. So I've never been called those kind of names before, and was just in a rage. It was a good thing that I wasn't standing in front of him, because it might have driven me to the point of such anger at that point that I would myself have become violent.
Mm-hmm.
I might have just like, you know, given it a swift kick or a swift slap,
Yeah.
because I was pushed to my limit and I was being accused of things that were way beyond me. What she accused me of was flashing her husband.
In
Now,
what time would this have happened with all the chaos but obviously we're dealing with an anger and emotions that aren't balanced at this point from all different directions.
exactly. And my partner didn't believe it for a minute because he said the same thing. Like, when?
Yeah.
And that is so not Joan, you know? So the stories that she was making up were so far-fetched that it was just a complete annihilation and wanting to make me a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we all go through that kind of thing in life.
Mm-hmm.
We do. You know, you have an employer or something who wants to get rid of you, so they make up stories. You have, you know, family members who make up stories, and it's really hard to hold your own uniqueness and personally to believe in your self-worth.
Correct.
But that is the heroine.
Mm-hmm.
The heroine claims her self-worth and her voice. So he thankfully said, "Let's get off the boat and go talk about it." So he took her off the boat, which protected me,
Mm-hmm.
because I needed protection. And he was just blown away by the immaturity, the lack of anything substantive that she was saying. You know, just her whole temper tantrum that erupted with alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
You know, on this boat where you're contained. So eventually he came back, and as he walked back in, the father said, "I have a piece of my mind that I'm going to say." And my partner turned around and said, "Please don't."
Ah.
But when he came back downstairs and he told me this story, I was physically afraid. You know, I did not know. Just imagine if we'd stayed on this boat for 3 weeks. Fortunately, we were getting off the next day. So the next day, I actually had him walk me off the boat for my protection. Now, that's no place that a woman should be. A woman should never be fearful of her physical well-being. Never. That is not okay. So he walked me off. It was such a big mess at that point that I had a quick cup of coffee and I got a cab and I went off to the other side of the island. I was so glad to be on land. And it was such a big mess with all of them. The other thing I think that a heroine does is she doesn't try to solve it for other people when it's like that. We talk about people and the sticker system and the work that we do. And sometimes you cannot influence, change, even talk to some people.
Yeah.
Some people you just need to stop talking and walk away from. And that's difficult when you're on 44 feet of a boat. but as soon as you can get your freedom, go for it.
Run like the wind.
Run like a rabbit. Just run, 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 run. And that's what I did. I had confidence in my partner that I could leave him in the middle of the mess and he'd sort it out however he was going to sort it out. And his life was going to be what his life was, and my life was going to get back to happy.
Bring on the joy.
Heroine prizes joy, freedom, and prosperity in her life. And so bring on the joy. I got in that cab and I found a nice little hotel over on the other side of it. I had a lovely lunch. I went for a walk on the beach. I did all the things that I could in the moment to bring my emotion down, to calm me down, to let me know my own desire for beauty and well-being, and to let those people just be crazy.
Which, they continued their craziness as you were in freedom and enjoying yourself.
Exactly. They were still in craziness. They all went off to a Airbnb together.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the amazing part, as after they created this drama, they all still seemed to get along with each other the next day. And my partner invited me to come have dinner with he, and there was one of his longtime college friends was also on the boat. So there were these four, and then this college friend. And I thought he was against me the whole time, which was interesting because I felt like I didn't have any friends at all, which is very easy to do, is to make it about everyone is against you, not just some people are against you. My take on it was everyone was against me, and I couldn't fight my way out of this box. He said, come for dinner. I said, no way. I'm never seeing any of these people again. No, no, no. And then he asked again and he said, we're going to have some dinner. Will you come join us? And I rethought about it and thought, that is his best friend, long-term friend. So maybe I should be a little flexible here. So I did go with him to dinner. And what I discovered was he wasn't against me. He just saw what was going on and he didn't want to be in the middle of it. So he had heads down. I never spoke to him the whole 2 weeks, nor did he speak to me. He just had heads down because he could see how volatile the situation was. And he just put himself in a corner, just like I was trying to do as well.
And that's interesting. At one point, there's a conversation now about people picking a lane. You're either for something or you're against something. And by him being quiet, he was allowing it to happen. But we also realize that, again, we all live lives. We have lives before and after. And it could have been immense trauma for him that he was reliving too. And he did not know what to do or what was safe because, again, it was only a 44-foot boat for him too.
Exactly. And I think as we spent about 3 hours having dinner, just debriefing the whole thing, because it truly was something between a Shakespeare comedy tragedy and the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
That song, do, 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 how the Twilight Zone starts. That's the way I felt the whole time. So he was as powerless to really change the situation as my partner was. And I actually got to see that he was a good guy when we had dinner. But my assumption on the boat was that everybody was against me, which isn't necessarily a good assumption. I've been in that situation before, because usually everybody is not against you. Maybe it's one or two people that you're having difficulty with, but in general, it's generally not everybody.
Yeah.
So it took us, we debriefed that for like 3 hours. And we were like, why would this woman, who was the couple, the Rini and the older couple, why would she have such an agenda? Well, we couldn't even really answer that question. She just had an agenda that she was not going to let go of. And she was going to make all of us miserable in the process. And, I had my own feelings to deal with at that point because I felt robbed. This should have been a magnificent, lovely, glorious time to relax and rejuvenate. And I got robbed. Yes, robbed, because my experience was not the experience that I wanted to have. But you know what? Sometimes that's where the best lessons occur. Because what I learned was that under that kind of pressure, when it seems like the world's against you, your heroine has to show up. You will have to keep your self-worth, know who you are, keep yourself intact, and then walk away as fast as you can. And sometimes, fortunately for me, it was 2 weeks. Sometimes it's longer than that, you know. However, the strategy's the same. Because in the end, I could not change these people's point of view. They had a mission and they were playing a game that was way beyond my ability to influence it. And the only thing I could really do was to get myself out of their game, to go back where I could find peace, happiness, joy, where I could think about my future, about a book coming shortly, about the fact that I had done all the editing on the boat for the book, and to look forward that the life that I own my life. You own your life. Don't let anybody rob you of that life. They robbed me of an experience for a short period of time. But as we said, Helen Keller said, the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn. I didn't fail to make the turn because when I stopped that, my self-worth would go with me. I was crazy. I thought they were crazy. I didn't think that I had done anything or behaved in any manner that I wasn't proud of. I didn't retort or participate in the drama. I did my best to keep the drama low. So when I walked off that boat and I had me, I was proud of me. I kept my self-worth. I behaved well. I continued to stay with a heart of love because that's what a heroine does. I didn't blame or hate or disenfranchise. I didn't do any of that. I just did my best to walk away from it when I could.
And that's such a key point of strength, too, to know that you could live through this, survive it, and then continue on your path. And I think stories like this are really important, not for a point of gossip, as we've excluded names, or not for a point of dreaming up more drama, but to speak the truth about what does happen in this world. And as so many women are following on the journey and joining the heroine's journey along with us, we're realizing that when we can hear somebody else's story, we can see a solution or a light that we previously might not have seen in our own life. And sometimes we may not be in the middle of it in that moment, but we can now look back at our life at similar events and think, wait a minute, I was strong. I did survive this. I did the best I could in that moment, and I got myself out of it. So there's a lot of different benefits to sharing these trials that we go through so other women can realize there is still a path ahead. Just continue to take one step at a time. And even if you can't see the path before you take that step, the step will come up underneath your foot and support you so you can take another step. And that's absolutely one of the most beautiful miracles we have in life.
Yes, so true. Sometimes it feels like a trash compactor. I tell this story to let you know that on the boat, I felt like I was in a trash compactor. I felt like nothing was going my way and that I couldn't even have my own joy in the moment.
Yeah.
However, I tell that story to tell you what a heroine does.
Absolutely.
That a heroine holds on to her self-worth, that she is proud of her behavior, that she eventually sorts out that not everybody was against her, and from the moment I was able to get out of the trash compactor, I could return my own joy.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. Well, what a blessing. And I think that the tail end of this goes also to how we open this. A lot of times, no matter how perfect our lives can appear or all the pieces we pulled together, whether it's the family, the job, the spouse, whatever that looks like, there are events that roll on into our path. And the choice we have is about our emotions and the choices that we make for ourselves in this moment. And Joan, this was just a great example that I'm very sorry the experience was even to the point of being frightening. But we can definitely see an application for the heroine's journey and a true heroine as we continue to move forward.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I didn't see that one coming.
Oh.
I didn't know the agenda was out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the fact that they fell in my path, you know, gave me something to learn, because nothing's wasted.
Yeah.
Everything, even when it feels so tight like that, is because you're supposed to learn something, and it all fits in the picture going forward. So, you know, if you feel like you're in a trash compactor in your life, we invite you to know that you own your own life. And by owning your own life, you can choose to reinvent, reinvigorate, don't miss the turn in the road, and that you're here perfectly designed and conceived, ready to show your gifts to the world, and keep yourself in a place where you can find the joy in your life. So we invite people to go to our website at walkthejourney.com, where you can find all kinds of things, including a free ebook that we have for you called The 4 Mistakes Women Make. That was true of me too. I made those mistakes, and that's why I had to write it. So go now to the website and get it. And please join us for next week's episode of The Heroine's Journey. Thanks for joining us.
That is this week's episode of The Heroine's Journey. You can access the blog post for this episode along with other great resources at walkthejourney.com. Also, get your free ebook at walkthejourney.com so you can say goodbye to just surviving and turn into thriving. Join us next week for another fun, inspiring, and uplifting episode. If you love this episode, feel free to subscribe and give us a review on iTunes. Stay in touch on other social media platforms, Instagram and our Facebook group, both at The Heroine's Journey LLC. Until next time.